The day is October 16th, 2012, and Canada sits in a tight battle to advance to the fourth and final round of CONCACAF World Cup qualification. A draw against Honduras away would have seen Canada advance, and after a 3-1 win against Cuba in the prior match, things were looking positive, as they carried a second-best +3 goal difference into the last game. But what could and probably should have been a celebration turned into a disaster, as Canada was obliterated away from home in an 8-1 loss. This really sums up Canada soccer in the 2006 to 2016 range, as they routinely struggled away from home and struggled to produce in the middle rounds of qualification. But if we flash forward to the summer of 2024, Canada's coming off their second World Cup qualification in 2022, has had a Champions League winner, a Bundesliga winner, a Ligue 1 winner, a Serie A winner, and played in the third place match of the Copa America, losing only in penalties to Uruguay. Quite a difference those 12 years made. And this is the topic of this video, as I look at the rise of Canada soccer from obscurity to potentially the strongest team in CONCACAF. Following that aforementioned 8-1 loss, Canada was sitting at 64th in the world rankings, being sandwiched by Albania and Belarus, and had just let go of their manager Stephen Hart, who not only fell short in the World Cup qualifiers, but also disappointed in the 2011 Gold Cup, in which Canada finished second last in their group, only beating Guadeloupe 1-0 in their only victory. This led to the hiring of Spanish manager Benito Floro, which on paper looked like a great move, as he coached in Europe, having managed Real Madrid from 1992 to 94, and Villarreal from 2002 to 2004, among other teams. His spell as manager, however, started terribly, as it included a 958-minute scoring drought, which was ended by Atiba Hutchinson in May 2014 against Bulgaria, and a 2-year winless streak that resulted in Canada dropping to its lowest ever FIFA World Ranking at 122nd in the world, between the Central African Republic and Guinea-Bissau in August 2014. This was a particularly disappointing stretch, as Canada was underperforming and losing to teams that they really shouldn't be. However, the roster they put out at this time was weaker than the previous core group. Outside of Atiba Hutchinson, Julian de Guzman, Marcel de Jong, Milan Borjan, and Jonathan Osorio, the team wasn't too strong. And the squad lacked scoring, as Dwayne de Rosario was aging, and other attackers like Toussaint Ricketts, Marcus Haber, and Simeon Jackson were not really starting caliber players if qualification was the goal. 2018 World Cup qualification was a step in the right direction, as Canada advanced to the second round after beating Dominica 2-0 on the road and then 4-0 at home. While this is a result that should and likely always will go Canada's way, it was an improvement over recent form. And I don't think it was a coincidence that the 6-0 aggregate win came in games that featured Kyle Larin, as he chipped in with 2 goals across those 2 games. Kyle Larin featuring for the Canadian men's national team was very important to the early growth of this program, as in 2015 he was just breaking into world football, after being selected in the MLS draft out of the University of Connecticut. 2015 was his first pro year in which he made 27 appearances for Orlando City, in which he scored 17 goals. The addition of a big young striker in top form really helped build Canada at this stage, as it provided very necessary goal scoring and consistent goal scoring, which they hadn't had for a good long time, as Dwayne de Rosario was aging, as mentioned earlier. So since prime Dwayne de Rosario, they're really missing that consistency up front. After beating Belize 4-1 on aggregate, Canada advanced to the third round of the 2018 World Cup qualification, in which they were drawn into a group with Honduras, El Salvador, and Mexico. The first 2 matches were a great start, as Canada won 1-0 on a deflected goal by Kyle Larin, and the second match was a 0-0 draw in El Salvador. In the next decisive window, Canada started with a match against Mexico at BC Place, in which 54,000 fans were in attendance, which set a Canadian record for any national team. However, Canada would go on to lose that match 3-0. Despite that loss, Canada was still in second. But even after a 3-1 last match day win over El Salvador, Canada finished 1 point behind Honduras, who ended with 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses, compared to Canada's 2 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses. As a result, Benito Floro was sacked. However, steps were clearly made, as the team had a few qualifying results to be proud of. 4 goals from Kyle Larin was certainly a sign of things to come as well. This is significant to mention, as I think a lot of weight is put on the caliber of players that come later on. And while this obviously has made a big impact on Canada soccer, Canada was clearly building a little bit before they broke into the team. The next big step in the development of the Canadian men's national team came in form of hiring John Herdman, who was the head coach of the women's national team from 2011 to 2018, in which the women's team won a bronze at the 2012 Olympics, went to the quarterfinals of the 2015 World Cup, and again won bronze in the 2016 Olympic Games. This was a really big step, and as a Canadian myself, I thought this was an excellent move. While from the outside looking in, I'm sure it was something that wouldn't even have been noticed and seemed relatively tame, as he really wasn't a big name in the men's football world. But he was very committed to the growth of soccer in Canada, and he continued that development on the national team side with the men's national team. The next and perhaps biggest leap forward was the growth of Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David. While I will mention more players than just them, they were certainly the two from this golden generation that really take us to the next level. They're the best players easily that Canada have produced ever, and as a result have helped take this program to the next level. Alphonso Davies was originally not eligible to play for Canada, as he was born in Liberia and was a refugee to Canada. This changed in 2017 when Davies passed his citizenship test, and that same month he was called up to the senior national team at the age of 16. His first call-up was June 2017, and his first tournament was the 2017 Gold Cup, which saw him score twice against French Guiana, which made him the youngest ever national team player to feature for the team, and the youngest ever goal scorer. Since then, obviously Alphonso Davies has been a mainstay in the Canadian MNT, and has gone from the Vancouver Whitecaps to Bayern Munich. And while he originally was a left winger, he has blossomed into one of the best left backs in world football, and is now the captain as of 2024. Jonathan David, on the other hand, was born in Brooklyn, New York, and moved to Haiti with his parents at 3 months old, before moving again to Ottawa by the age of 6. He played youth soccer from the age of 10, eventually joining Ottawa Internationals SC at the age of 16. From there, he had trials with a few European clubs, being FC Salzburg and Stuttgart, but he was rejected by both clubs. After these unfortunate setbacks, Jonathan David was signed at the age of 18 by Belgian First Division side Ghent in January of 2018. At the beginning of next season, August 4th, 2018 is when he's made his professional debut, in which he scored in stoppage time against Zulte Waregem to force a 1-1 draw. He would later move to Lille in 2020, and from this point forward, he has grown into one of the most consistent strikers in Europe, as he's made 161 appearances and has scored 82 goals in league play. These two players have really developed a higher level of professionalism in a Canadian MNT, but they are certainly not alone. While I won't be naming every single breakout player, Stephen Eustáquio has really bolstered the Canadian midfield as his consistent play and experience playing in the Portuguese Premier League with Pacos Ferreira and Porto has certainly helped Canada control matches from the midfield. While Milan Borjan and Maxime Crépeau have in the last decade been great goaltenders for the national team. Alistair Johnston has also really come out of nowhere to become a staple for the team at the right back position, and has become just as important to Celtic where he plays his club play. And I'd like to mention also Kamal Miller, who's helped to add to the defense, especially ahead of the World Cup qualification in 2022. Not much was really expected for the Canadian MNT ahead of the 2022 World Cup qualifying, but internally, I think they really felt the expectations to qualify. As I believe these players felt like they had what it took, especially a lot of them playing at higher level in Europe. And in the first 11 matches, they proved this, albeit the first handful were against lower ranked opposition, as the Canadian MNT was unbeaten in their first 11 matches, and then would finish out 2021 with their first victory over Mexico in 20 years, which helped Canada finish atop the table by the end of the year. 2021 also saw the highest ever FIFA ranking for Canada, as they got to 40th in the world, after starting the year ranked 72nd, which also meant they earned the title of Most Improved Side. And then March 27th, 2022 was a historic day in Canada soccer history, as the 4-0 win against Jamaica saw Canada qualify for their second ever World Cup, which ended a 36-year World Cup drought after the 1986 qualification. The 2022 World Cup saw Canada drawn into a tough group, as it had Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco. Canada probably deserved at least a draw in their first match, but ended up losing 1-0 to Belgium, which included a Davies missed penalty. And then they would go on to lose 4-1 and 2-1 to both Croatia and Morocco respectively. But perhaps what was most significant from those later losses was Alphonso Davies' goal against Croatia, as this was Canada's first ever goal at a World Cup. And while it's never ideal to lose every match, and for the Canadian players, I would imagine just getting there was not necessarily their goal, but it was certainly a great stepping stone. After the 2022 World Cup, a depleted Canada squad at the 2023 Gold Cup lost in just the quarterfinals, and John Herdman saw the end of his tenure as he left for Toronto FC in August of 2023. For a little bit, it was unclear if Canada would continue to rise, as interim head coach Mauro Borrello limped past Trinidad and Tobago to qualify for the 2024 Copa America, and only had to do so after a disappointing aggregate loss to Jamaica in the CONCACAF Nations League A. But they qualified, and ahead of the tournament, Canada Soccer knew they needed a permanent coach. And in May of 2024, Canada Soccer hired a new coach, as they hired Jesse Marsch to coach the team. The American head coach had recently managed both Leeds and RB Leipzig, and while he wasn't super successful, getting a coach who managed players at the highest level, or at least a very high level, was crucial to taking this generation of players to that next level. And also, playing better competition was crucial. So before the Copa America, Canada played friendlies in Europe, which resulted in a 4-0 loss to the Netherlands and a 0-0 draw against second-ranked France. While the Netherlands result was a little disappointing, the France match created some excitement ahead of the Copa, and boy was it a good tournament for Canada. The 2024 Copa America started with a 2-0 loss to Argentina, but losing to the world champions was expected. They followed it up with a 1-0 win over Peru, with Jonathan David scoring the lone goal, and then a draw against Chile saw Canada advance to second out of their group. Then in the knockout stage, Canada managed to defeat Venezuela on penalties 4-3 after a 1-1 draw, which set up a rematch against Argentina in the semifinals. And while that semifinals resulted in another 2-0 loss, it meant that Canada would be playing one more game regardless. And in the third place match, they led for the final 10 minutes of relegation 2-1, but a late tying goal from Luis Suarez took the game to pens, in which Canada lost to Uruguay 4-3. While third place would have been amazing, fourth place at the Copa is nothing for Canada to feel ashamed of. In fact, it was the best result that they could have hoped for before the tournament. Canada has recently followed up that Copa America with a 2-1 win on the road against America, which is the first time Canada has beat the US in America since 1957, and then went on to beat Suriname twice, which sees Canada now ranked 31st in the world, which is a new high for Canada. With the core group of players mentioned, and the young developing players like Ismael Kone at Marseille, Moise Bombito at Nice, and now a healthy Tejan Buchanan at Inter Milan, Canada looks to keep this momentum going ahead of the 2026 World Cup, which will be played on North American soil. Thank you for watching. This video has meant a lot to me making, as it has been a real joy as a Canadian soccer fan to see my nation play in tournaments I did not think I'd get to see them play in my life. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please consider liking, subscribing, and comment down below what kind of video you'd like to see me make next. I hope you all have a great day.